good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We have a really cool release today with OTbase Inventory 8. There's going to be some great features that Ralph gets into. For those that maybe have missed the presentation or will miss it, we'll make it available immediately following the end of the presentation. And if you have questions during Ralph's presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll have a brief Q&A at the end of the presentation. From here, I'll turn it over to Ralph.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we are looking at the new features in OTbase Inventory 8. Let me be perfectly clear. This webinar is mostly intended for customers, for people who are already using OTbase. So we will highlight a couple of differences, new stuff for those who are already familiar with the product. So if you are joining this webinar just to get an idea of what OTbase is and what the totally mind-blowing new features would be, my advice is the most interesting piece for you is the extended automatic compliance audit functionality, which I will talk about roughly about 5 minutes into the webinar. And we will do at least one follow-up webinar, maybe next week or the week after next week, where I will go into detail about this new feature set. And that will also address people who are not already using OTbase. So this might just stimulate your appetite to learn more. And then rather shortly, we will also do this extended version where we will focus only on automatic compliance audits, which will really knock your socks off. Today, we will just focus briefly on this new feature. So stay with me. Right about 5 minutes into the webinar. After that, all the people who are not using OTbase already might just doze off, to switch off, whatever. Go on with your lives, my friends. Okay, so let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to show you, which is new, is when I log on to OTbase Inventory. And this is the point now. If you are using the product already, you would say, well, wait a second, that's not possible. That's magic. He's already on the inventory page. He's not on the events page, which used to be the default landing page. Now, the new feature is that you can configure your landing page in your personal settings. This is done right here. So just imagine that your usual process after logging on to OTbase Inventory is, well, I'm not interested in those events. I don't want to see all those new CVEs. No, it's not good for my mental health. I just want to go straight to inventory or to reports. Then you can set this in your personal settings, and after login, you will be taken directly to that page. Okay, so this is new. And the next thing that is new is additional charts in the reports. So let's go to the reports and just pick any of these predefined reports. Wow, what is that? So again, you users, you will be blown away because we have included 3 additional charts here based on customer request. That was one of the feature additions where you didn't have to convince us heavily, right? So that was almost a no-brainer. So on top, additionally to the existing charts for vendors, types, and models, you now also see firmware versions, life cycles, and reference locations. So just by looking at this chart here, for example, I can see right away, well, most of these devices where Adobe is installed are in the Charlotte plant, okay? And also we have changed the color appearance of those charts so that they fit better into the overall branding of OTbase. So now we are using orange and gray. Okay, the next feature that we're going to look at is this extended audit functionality. In order to do that, we go to the workflow page and we go to audits. Now, when you define a new policy that you want to, let me back off here, just to give something to the people who haven't used the product already. The policies that you can define here refer to standard configurations that you would like to see in your installed base. That relates to both hardware and software. So, as an example, you could tell OTbase, well, our engineering stations should run on this and that hardware, Dell, blah, 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 Siemens, blah, 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 using this operating system version, this version of the SCADA software, for example, or for the engineering software, also maybe some antivirus and so forth, okay? And once that you do that and assigned these policies to those engineering systems, then OTbase would automatically show you non-compliance, or certainly also compliance. And this has been heavily extended, which in our opinion takes it to a whole new level. So in other words, we expect that everybody is going to be using these policies because it's an absolutely fantastic way to quickly determine if your OT devices are configured to specification, to policy. And it's also a very clear feature where you can explain what asset management really means. So this certainly goes beyond asset inventory, because an asset inventory tells you how the devices are configured. The asset management piece comes in when you express your expectations how devices should be configured. And then you might see a difference. You might see a delta, and then you would want to get rid of that delta. You want to make your configurations up to specification so that they become compliant. Okay, so now let's look at what is new. When I want to add a new policy or edit an existing one, here you will find a new tab, any required software. So previously you only had required software, and the drawback was that every single specific piece of software that you had defined here would need to be installed on the target device. Otherwise, the target device would be non-compliant. Okay, then customers tell us, well, no, that really doesn't do the trick, because our policy says, for example, any antivirus software, any whitelisting software, you name it, right? And we don't care if it's McAfee or if it's Windows Defender and so forth. And in order to express this, we have added this new tab where you can define a list of software products by selecting any of these. Let's just say vendor McAfee. And you could select any of these and add it to those. It's selected. So, and then to this list up here, and anything that's in here would qualify the device for compliance. Okay, so that is new. The next thing that is very much related, which is new, and this is, I tell you, if this is not going to blow your mind, you know, then I don't know what. The next thing is this button right here, which you find in required software and any required software, and also in prohibited software, add wildcard, okay? So this allows you to use a filter setting. That means you can tell OTbase, well, any version of Adobe Flash, right? I don't care which it is. Adobe Flash is a no-go. So if I say add wildcard, I can say Adobe, and then let's just say we use that same thing here, Flash. Also with the wildcard, we don't care about the version, add, okay? Then this becomes a more or less generic filter, and anytime if any product, any software product that matches this filter is identified, that device will be flagged as non-compliant because I'm here in the prohibited software area, okay? So that is an extremely useful feature when you want to express. Also, going back to the other example with your antivirus stuff, well, I don't care. And any Microsoft Defender, I'm not interested in the version. The main thing is that they have some version of Defender running. That could already be something like a base policy. And you could also certainly then make it a little bit more granular. You could also express for version 10 or higher or something like that. So this is extremely useful because you can use it in all these three areas here with the software. And that wildcard will allow you to define more generic policies, right? So just again, think about required software such as antivirus. Let's just assume next month McAfee or Windows, they issue a new version for that specific antivirus product. Then you would, in previous versions, you would have to go back and edit the policy and add that specific version to your set of required software. From now on, this is no longer necessary because that new version, even though it wasn't in the database previously, well, it's identified because you can use these wildcards. Okay, so that's a very, very big improvement. But it gets better. Bear with me, bear with me. So the next step will really blow your mind, because the other thing that you can now do is you can do rule-based assignments. Let me tell you what that means. So when I define a policy in this first tab right here, previously you only had the choice between assigned devices and all devices. So you would have to specifically tell OTbase, well, it's about these 10 devices. Let's just say these 10 engineering stations. And then if somebody would have added another 2 engineering stations, you would have to manually assign those to the policy first before any compliance check would have been made. This is now no longer necessary because now you can tie a policy to a saved search. In case you have forgotten about what a saved search is, this is anything that you do on the search page and inventory. So down here in search, where you can pretty much use all of those different criteria that are available in the database. And once that you have defined your search, you can then save that search, right, with using this dialog right here. Any saved search can then be pulled from this pull down menu. Any saved search will also automatically be available as a report in the reports page that you have seen earlier. And now any of these saved searches are also available as a policy assignment group. Okay, so anything I have saved here, and that could be, as an example, all the engineering systems. When I pull that up, then I get this list down here with 195 entries. And if I go back to my policy workflow, audits, and again, add that policy, saved search, I can now also select those devices here. Okay, easy peasy. And in that saved search, if I refer to engineering systems as an example, I would simply say anything running Rockwell RS Links or Studio 5000, something along those lines, right? And that means that anytime a new computer is added to your networks that fulfills these criteria, it's automatically covered by the policy. Whereas previously, you had to manually assign those new systems to the policy, which certainly is a pain in the ass because people tend to forget these things, and you would lose your compliance status, so your compliance reliability. Okay, so that is absolutely opening a new window of functionality here. the wildcard assignments for prohibited software, required software, and then the rule-based definitions of the base set that goes into the policy. And I can tell you, my friends, you will love this feature. You will no longer use assigned devices and all devices. That is, I mean, we left those in there just for backward compatibility so that nobody complains, oh, now I have to rewrite everything. It's in there, but it might become deprecated in the future because this logic here is so much more powerful with the saved searches. Okay. Also, if you think about all devices, I mean, that always came with a drawback that you would see a compliance section in every single device profile, no matter if it made sense or not. So if you had defined a policy previously, for example, no, Adobe Flash is a no-go, you don't want to see that, you would also have a compliance section for your PLCs, for your Windows switches, for your switches, etc., where it totally doesn't make sense. And you can prevent this from now on going forward by simply telling OTbase, well, this only applies to systems running Windows. So you do that saved search first, and then you will not see such a compliance section in all those devices where it doesn't make any sense. Okay, good. So again, we will elaborate more on this in upcoming webinars because it's a total game changer. So I would say for the first time, you can seriously, totally rely on OTbase for all your compliance checking as soon as you start to define auditable policies. What does that mean? So in some areas, like IC 62443, you do have these compliance ideas and like security level 1, 2, 3, 4 or 0, and those are defined very vaguely. Once that you translate that to specific criteria, for example, well, there got to be some antivirus on that device, or there got to be a whitelisting product on this device. Then you can put that in a policy in OTbase, and you will have constant compliance audits automatically. So no longer need to sweat it when the auditors come to your site and they want to go through everything. I mean, you can just point them to OTbase and just say, look, you can see right away, you can stay at home, guys. We don't want to be pestered by your presence because you're taking up our conference rooms and you're demanding sandwiches and coffee. No, just stay at home, log on to OTbase, check out our policies, our compliance, and you will see we're just fine and dandy. You will see that all the time, the actual state of your compliance, like live. Okay, the other thing that we have changed here is for any policy profile, which would look like this. The listing of devices is now split into two sections, as you see it here, into compliant devices and non-compliant devices, which in our opinion makes it a little bit better readable. Previously, it was all in one table, and you had one column where you would see an X for a non-compliant device and a check mark for a compliant device. And we thought, well, this is much more usable this way, because most of the time you're only interested in the non-compliant devices. So we leave the compliant devices closed by default. If you're interested in those, you can simply click on the bar here, and you will also be able to see details on those compliant devices. Those are the numbers for these devices. So again, that enhances the usability. Next thing, we are still with the automatic compliance audits. We're not finished yet, guys, so bear with me. Now we also have compliance reports. So if you go back to the reports page, you see now in this sidebar, previously you only saw devices, and this already could have given you that they have something in the drawer, and now it's out. So now you also have a policy item in this sidebar, and once that I open this, you see, oh damn, those are all my policies. They automatically show up here. And certainly now you also get the benefits of the reports. You get a little bit additional detail. Let me show you how that looks like. So it is a bit similar to the policy profile that you have seen just a minute earlier, but it comes with some additional perks. And like in every report now in OTbase, you will see those 6 charts at the top, which we think is very convenient, because again, it would tell you right away that the top sites, the reference locations as we call those. So you would see right away, the most non-compliant devices are in Durham and Charlotte, and we are talking about mostly Microsoft Windows 7 as the operating system. Oh, that's bad. That's another problem that we need to address. Then you have a timeline, as you know it from other reports. In this case, the timeline is split because it involves compliant and non-compliant devices, which we believe is very neat, because this makes it very easy to see the changes over time, right? So anytime where you get rid of those Adobe Flash players on some devices, you will see the orange area decrease and the blue area increase. And certainly what you would like to see is everything in blue. That would be the ideal end stage. Okay, and then you have a listing of those non-compliant devices. For the reports, we didn't bother to also expose the compliant devices, because we think, well, it's, for the report, you're actually only interested in the non-compliance. If you want to see the compliant devices, you would go back to the policy profile. Then, as with the other report pages, you can also assign those reports to widgets in this dashboard area. And in this case, you can also tell OTbase, no, I don't want to see absolute numbers. I want to see percent values, which in our opinion makes more sense here, because when it comes to compliance, we are basically interested in where am I? Am I almost done, or have I just started? And the absolute number will probably not tell you this, but a percent value would give you the, okay, I'm basically halfway through, right? From all those devices that fall under the outdated category, almost half of them have been updated already, right? And this is a good example where you see the timeline changing. So around that stage, yeah, a lot of devices became more devices became non-compliant because the specific operating system version became obsolete at that date, right? And then you would see a change like this. Okay, the last thing with the automated compliance audits is that the compliance data is also exposed via the REST API. So just in case you want to show your management all those very important things in Power BI or in your custom application, you can do that because it's available via the REST API. This gives you an idea what that looks like. So we have a new endpoint, which is called compliance. And that endpoint basically works very similar to the CV or to the vulnerabilities endpoint that you may know already, where you get a list of all the CVEs along with the affected devices. In this case, you get a list of all the policies, and then you get 2 additional lists for each policies, where you see the compliant devices and the non-compliant devices. And as you would probably expect, the devices are referenced by their device ID, which for OTbase is like the major currency, the unique identifier for a device with which you will always find it in the database. The compliance data is also exposed in the devices. So if you use the usual devices endpoint with the REST API, and then you tell OTbase, include equals compliance. So it is not included in the standard output set, because if you're interested in that data, it would just blow up your result data set. And as you can see here, for each device, you will then get an additional object, which is conveniently called compliance, and with all the information that you need. So for example, here you will see, this is non-compliant because the compliant value is set to false. Okay, good. So that concludes our overview of the compliance functionality. The next thing that is new, it allows me to stay on this reports page, is CVE reports, something that was requested by customers. Anything that you have defined or that you have saved as a view in the CVE details is now also available as in a separate report page. Okay, just like this. So once that I have defined a specific view, like show me all the vulnerabilities associated with Adobe Flash, then this will also be exposed now as a dedicated report that tells you about all those devices. You will see the timeline, and the timeline is usually the major difference. This is what the reports bring extra to the table. You are able to track your progress or lack thereof. In respect to the CVEs, most likely you want to get rid of the CVEs. You would define a CVE detail view for a remediation project. So you tell your team, okay, next week we are going to focus on all those pesky Adobe Flash installations. We want to get rid of those vulnerabilities. And then the timeline allows you to track your progress. And this is something that you won't see in that specific detail in the CVE workflow. And then also, again, you have these additional charts for OS and firmware and for the reference locations. Good. Next feature is in the search page, inventory, and then we go to search. In the search page, you can now also search for values in the security field. Okay, and well, the security field was in our standard data model for many years, but since recently people started to actually use it, mostly in the context of 62443, you can now also generate reports. You can generate saved searches if you use that specific field here in the search. So for example, let's assume we have assigned a security level of 2 to a bunch of devices, and you want to see what those devices are. You could simply do it just like that. Security begins with or contains or ends with 2, and then you will see all those devices that have an assigned security level of 2, which you can expose here in the result list, okay? And now if you save that search, as I have done already here, security level 2 devices, security level 3 devices, that will allow me then to select it here from the drop-down, like so. And you remember, once that I have it in that saved search, this will automatically create a report, and it will also be made available in the policies workflow, which is in this case very important because it makes it very easy for you to tie your security levels to standard configurations, especially regarding software, right? So you could easily define a policy stating, well, for those level 3 devices, they must have this and that, an antivirus, latest operating system version, whitelisting, you name it, okay? So that becomes very, very simple. Let's look what else we have. Oh yeah, we got a system log I will not be able to show you the system log because it's maintained on the server. So you will see that either on the server as a text file, or you can also write your log to syslog. As you would probably expect it, right? And this will then allow you to track any changes that users have made. So if somebody changes values of a certain device or changes metadata, etc., you will see that reflected in the system log. Wiley, that was for you, I can tell you, and it did cost a lot of effort. Next thing that allows me to stay on the search page once more. You will see additional information for manufacture date and warranty. What does that mean? This is data from the SIP identity object. And so this relates to SIP, the Control Information Protocol, that is used by Rockwell and other manufacturers. And for, I think, about a year or two, they have extended this information to include manufacture date and warranty. Manufacture date sometimes is very important when you think about vendor product notices and safety advisories, because sometimes the vendor finds themselves incapable of telling you a serial number range. They will tell you from this manufacture date on to that manufacture date. Oh, okay, and then previously you had to do a manual walk down inspection in order to check the manufacture date of those devices. If they use this SIP identity object, you no longer have to do that, because OTbase will will solicit this information automatically, and you will be able to see it exposed here in the search results. Okay, and so that becomes very important for any user of Ethernet IP style devices, mostly Rockwell. You no longer have to manually check it out, and then the same applies to the warranty details of that device. The caveat, certainly you would need to use a recent version of OT-based discovery. So that feature that is also included in OT-based discovery, I think it was added about 6 months ago, and now it's also available in OT-based inventory. So you could see the details already in OT-based inventory, but nobody uses that for production purposes. Now it's also imported into the database, and you will see that, and you can filter for that, etc., in OT-based inventory. And I think we are almost done with that. Enable, disable LDAP referral chasing. Yeah, that's too unique. I will not cover that. And also the other stuff. No, we will just skip that and open it up for any questions that you might have. Before we go there, let me remind you once again that we will do a follow-up webinar or two about the automatic compliance audits, because they're a total game changer. Good. Do we have any questions?
Yep, so for those that are still online, you can use the chat section and post your questions there, and we'll be able to answer them. Like Ralph said, we're going to have some follow-up webinars. If you want to learn more about the latest release and all things OTbase, definitely head over to our website. There's white papers, there's blog posts, there's videos. So it's a great way to gain additional insight for the product. That being said, I don't see any questions coming through. Ralph?
Then let's just call it a day. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.